I have been accused of declaring Gemini's Nano Banana the best imaging editor or AI tool available. It might be true. I may have said it. It may be the best. I'm not sure. But we're here today to tell you that there is a new challenger to the to Gemini Nano Banana's throne, and that is ChatGPT Images 2.0.
Yeah, I've been testing it out and I'm pretty impressed so far. It's not just like a minor quality improvement. It lets you create all sorts of types of images that you couldn't create before in ChatGPT. And I would also say some images that are difficult to get right in Nano Banana. So we'll show you some real world examples and an actual comparison between Nano Banana and ChatGPT from a real world user.
I love it. This is The Shift presented by A. Weber, the show that translates everything happening in AI into something practical and applicable that small business owners can actually use today.
I have ChatGPT open and we're going to start this off. I have a bunch of examples, but every time a new image generation model or any model comes out, this is one of the tests that I put to it. Create an image of a Rebus puzzle. And a Rebus puzzle is like a kind of a word picture type puzzle where the arrangement of letters, numbers, and words in relation to each other communicate a larger word or phrase. So this one, travel overseas. And historically, models have had a really difficult time creating Rebus puzzles. So I'm going to kick this off in the background before I jump into walking through ChatGPT. So it's going to do its thing. And first, before I'll leave this up. I just want to talk about some of the highlights in ChatGPT Images 2.0. Some of the things that they call out are stronger access across languages. So if you want to do multilingual images or just better translation, a lot more precision and control. And one of the examples I'm going to show you is a collage. Well, that does not believed, I guess. That's not the worst. That's probably the best Rebus puzzle I've seen an LLM create so far. So,
yeah, setting aside the letters below that I don't follow, the image portion kind of works.
Yeah. But actually, you know what? Instead of just telling you what ChatGPT can now do, let me start walking through some examples.
Let's do it.
So this first one, I wanted to try and create a collage. So the prompt that I gave it was, I want to create a collage. You can see it on screen there, communicating the range of different people who participate in surfing and are parts of surf culture. I told it to include some text, surfs up for all of us in the middle, and then basically surround it with a collage of images in different styles of different people enjoying surfing and surf culture. And it did a remarkably good job. And ChatGPT Images previously, I don't have a before of this, but could not do this reliably. You would get jank and weird stuff that was not that wasn't fulfilling the goal that I was trying to get to.
It wasn't useful.
Yeah. Now, you see in here, though, like I gave it a lot of detail on this one, and that's what I'm trying to highlight with this. I could have given it much more detail, but you can kind of tweak the precision knobs of the images that are getting generated at a much finer detail than you could previously. So if I had said something like, include this type of surfboard or this type of these types of locations or this type of photographic style, I would have been able to get those images. Now you'll see that one of the things I did ask for was ages of photographs. That was one of the details that I asked for, and it did attempt to give some different photographic styles from different time periods. So this one here of the four or the five dudes with their longer boards,
and
then this
old school, yeah,
mixed with more modern style imagery. That's a really great result. Next one
So
that is
before you leave that one, couple things that I know I used to struggle with. Like you gave it a specific ratio that you wanted. Did it hit on that?
it did, but I have a better example of that.
Okay, cool. We'll get
So
to it.
the next thing that where it's gotten a lot better is photorealism. This
Mm,
is building off one of the examples that that OpenAI shared in their demo, where they asked for an image from a lecture hall. I live near Villanova University, so I asked for an image from a 2012 Villanova lecture hall with a professor showing slides about Aweber being an awesome email company. Now, you see, I didn't give any direction other than Aweber is available as an app inside of ChatGPT. That's something we're really stoked about. We just got listed as one of the first um, email marketing apps that you can use directly inside of ChatGPT earlier this week. But it put together a really kind of awesome slide and something that looks, because of like the photographic
yeah.
style, the people in it, the lens distortion,
I was
it
gonna say, look at
looks
the
really
lens
real.
distortion on that screen.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
it is wild. And if you've been using AI for image generation for a bit, you know it's gotten a lot better at text generation, but there are still weird artifacts that you generally see. This is really good. And if you look the slides where there's computer text on it, they all look great. It communicated what I would have hoped it would communicate, easy to use, powerful automation, etc. But check this out. There's text here that is sensible, handwritten, and text over here. None of it is nonsense gobbledygook that you would have seen in previous image generation models.
And Villanova's name and crest or whatever up in the woodwork above the screen too.
Yeah, yep. Just really, really kind of wild.
That's pretty impressive.
All right, let's jump to another one. This one is an example of a couple things. It's ultra wide aspect ratio. So you can see in my prompt, I said a 3:1 ultra wide aspect ratio. And also the illustration that it includes here is pretty awesome. So Steamboat Willie is a very early Mickey Mouse, or actually Steamboat Willie cartoon that entered the public domain this year, or maybe it was last year. So I
Yeah.
asked for a Steamboat Willie style disassembly of a basketball dunk shoot motion like a time lapse. So frame by frame of somebody going through the process of a dunk. This was again building off an OpenAI prompt that they demoed, but I tried to make it a little fun and interesting and challenging to say the character should be an anthropomorphic kangaroo with a basketball jersey. It should include him doing a front flip as part of the time lapse progress, and it's just incredible. Like, are there like weird artifacts? Sure. Like here, you can see their nose is kind of in two spots. Here,
Lost the
there's like,
ball on that one.
yeah, weird artifacting. But this was one prompt. I could always go through and edit it and
Yeah.
improve. But the point here is there's like a lot more customization option, both in terms of style and
Yeah.
in terms of things like aspect ratio. I
Well, and I
know,
think
like,
the biggest takeaway, and we open with this, like, is this better than Gemini's Nano Banana? I will say one of the areas, and we talked about this before with Nano Banana, and I'm sure we'll come back to it today. Like, it's really good at retaining like pixel information as you revise, but sometimes its initial output, unless you're super explicit and thorough, can be like kind of off the mark, and it needs a little bit more coaching. Like this first output is pretty incredible to me.
yeah, let's see if we can fix it in some places. So I'm gonna go into edit really quickly. I'm gonna highlight some things, and I'm gonna say this hand is also backwards, but I'm gonna leave that one for now. There are some frames where the illustration seems what's a good word for it?
Uh,
Crummy.
yeah, yeah, off kilter, skewed.
The kangaroo is, I hate typing live. Kangaroo is not holding the ball. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Like we've said in a couple previous episodes, more specificity is better. But for the purpose of this demo, let's leave it as it is. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to show you one more. This one is super exciting for me. And it's interesting that the result here isn't exactly what I expected. But the promise of ChatGPT Images 2.0 is that you can have it create multiple images, um, which is super helpful if you're trying to do something like create variants of ad units. Or one of the examples they talked about was asking for an entire magazine for it
Yeah.
to create it page by page. So you just end up with all of your magazine content from one session.
Well, like let's make that applicable. I don't know if I don't know if you remember these days or you were put through this, but I remember Photoshop or Illustrator, multiple artboards of every dimension, and you're duplicating your design across all these different ratios and dimensions, and like adjusting everything, moving everything around so that you're creating exactly what you're showing here, which is the same ad across a variety, like an entire ad set, a variety of ratios and dimensions. Like that was so tedious and frankly just a giant time suck. Like this is nuts.
Yeah. Yes. And you know what? Really quickly, I'm going to show you some of the examples from ChatGPT's launch post because they have some really wild examples here. But sorry, give me one sec. I should have pulled that up earlier.
All right, cut.
Here you go. So here are some of ChatGPT's or OpenAI's examples. This is them asking for a variety of different formats in the for an ad, and you can see that here they are individual images in different aspect ratios, sizes. Another example of this is a 4-page comic where each of these images are individual images from one request. So in my case, it did not end up returning individual images. It created it as a single image. But the promise of this is that I should be able to ask that prompt and get 1, 2, 3, 4 variants of the same basic ad creative.
Yeah, and it'll get there.
Yeah, I'm sure if I asked it again, or not, I'm sure,
Yeah,
I'll bet if I asked it
yeah.
again,
Will you
I
go
could
back
get
to
it
some
there.
of their examples for a second? Because I think it's an interesting thing to point out. Maybe the first matcha one that we were looking at. So it's interesting that they kept this in here because I think it's worth pointing out. Like I think you said it perfectly. The promise of this is just incredible. We saw in your surf graphic that you put together, it misspelled the word all. So like there's some like text issues I think still in terms of like explicitly following, and in this one, and they even kept it in their example here. But the prompt says at my new matcha shop called Kizuki, opening in Brooklyn Heights, and you see throughout it very explicitly did not follow that naming, right?
Yes, not anywhere in it,
Right.
both in the title here and
Right. It
also
got
you
Brooklyn
mentioned
Heights
down in the bottom
right.
corner.
And look, this is not me saying like this is like it just shows like this
We
is
don't have to apologize for
incredible image
OpenAI. Yeah.
generation, but there are still things you need to be checking and like making sure that it's producing the right result for you because there's still going to be some gaps. Like this is still imperfect to whatever degree, but absolutely I mean still just an absolute leap forward.
Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the other photorealistic options that they or examples that they included. Disposable camera, that's a really cool one.
Oh wow! Oh look, it's us in well, almost back to high school. Unfortunately, it's not even high school.
But it is so cool seeing the text on display and the progress
Yeah,
they've made with text on display. But let me show you a real world example and comparison between Nano Banana and ChatGPT
yeah.
Images too.
Let's do it. Let's go head to head.
So my wife is an interior designer, and one of the tools that she uses in her process is she uses Gemini, Nano Banana 2, and she will give it pictures of the space,
Mm-hmm.
a top-down floor plan of where she wants to place objects in a space, and then an image of a mood board. with the actual products, the chairs, the tables, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And here's an example of what she got from Nano Banana for a recent room. And you can see it kind of looks like cutouts that
Yeah.
are pushed
It looks
on top.
early stage Photoshop. Like, does
Yeah,
it sell the vision to the client? Probably,
yeah,
but
it's
it's a
awesome.
little unpolished, right?
But and like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
magical that you can do that. You can take
Yeah.
those three initial images. What and I'm going to stop here because I think it's easy to hear something like this and be like, "Oh no, AI is going to take every interior designer's job." But the big thing here is something had to go into actually sourcing and arranging mentally the contents for that room, and that comes down to taste, which is something that we preach here. That the thing that differentiates you and us is taste.
Yeah.
It's our ability to see something that a machine can't. It's our ability to experience the world around us and do things, make connections, sometimes based on our like just emotional humanity that machines can't.
hmm We
And then we
talked about
use
it.
tools to present that stuff.
Yeah, and we talked about a similar theme on Tuesday with Claude Design. We were kind of tongue in cheek saying, "Did Claude Design just replace us?" Um, like the reality is, I see it more as a superpower where it allows us to become the creative director and bring taste and vision to those things. And I think that's similar to the way your wife was using it here.
Yeah. Yes. But like, let's call out some things that are a little wonky, right? So the shadows look like you just had something in Photoshop and you applied a drop shadow to it.
Standard generic drop shadow.
Yes, yeah, and the lighting on the objects is not. It's like not. It doesn't feel real to the room, so everything just looks flat and stacked
Well,
on top of each
yeah,
other.
the lighting's not coming from a single or logical directions.
Yeah.
Um, that
Also, like the
that row
angle of
on the
some
left,
things.
yeah, some of the perspectives a little skewed, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you a behind the scenes look. Gemini just added a couple things here, like this thing wasn't in the initial mock-up. This thing,
Still
if you
took
see
some
what I'm
liberties, huh?
yeah, and these two ottomans. So like, let's take a look at the first pass with ChatGPT. So going from this to this,
Oh my
which
goodness.
is just radically different when you look at things like lighting and shadow and positioning, aspect ratio, or not aspect ratio, but just like angle. So here you can see the Nano Banana image on the left and the ChatGPT image on the right, and it's immediately clear to me that the lighting feels way more natural. The shadows are much more natural. It feels like things are actually sitting in the space that they're in, and the angles of furniture also feel like they're possible in the real world as opposed
Yeah,
to just flat things.
yeah, it's like unified realistic lighting. Yeah, not paper cutouts.
Yes.
So tell me, like, did Liz use the same process you talked about with Gemini? How she'll provide
Exact
the
same.
floor plan and the mood board, same process.
This was a test that she
Yeah.
ran just to compare the two. She used the exact same prompt, and it was like a two-sentence prompt, and she used the exact same images. Now, one thing that you'll see is it in this case, um, ChatGPT included the correct furniture everywhere, but what it got wrong was orientation.
I was
So things
wondering if
were
that was by design or if that was the AI.
that was not by design, that was the AI.
Mm.
But this is a great illustration of something we've talked about in the past, that like when it doesn't get it right on the first pass, that's not time to give up, it's time to redirect. So Liz then asked it to
Wow.
redirect, and this is what she ended up with, which is exactly what she wanted, a really great description or example of what she's proposing for the client that she's working with, that helps them all understand and have a shared language for the space that they're designing together.
And I'm going to be honest with you, as somebody who's close to this and I feel like is usually pretty good at finding the mistakes. Like I I would be hard pressed to prove that this wasn't a photo.
Yeah.
An immaculately staged photo. But that's like truly incredible. The accuracy in lighting, perspective,
Yes.
like those both of those area rugs are going to the same vanishing point. You know, they're no longer on separate planes.
Exactly. All these little things that people who aren't designers would have a difficult time describing, like the idea of vanishing point, but that our human brains understand
Oh, it
intuitively
just kind
as,
of goes, something's not right, even if we
yeah,
can't verbalize it, right?
yes. Um, and so, this one experience, just to lay it all out there,
Yeah,
is enough that Liz is switching to using ChatGPT images as
sure.
opposed to Nano Banana, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So those are my demos of this. I know, Jesse, you were looking at something in Canva that, although not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
directly
So this isn't,
ChatGPT.
yeah, we're not going to demo this because I unfortunately can't yet. But we were just talking on a prior episode. I forget it was last episode or the one before about how to use Claude connected to Canva to create really professional and editable looking um, designs in Canva, whether that's like for social media or whatever it might be. Um, Canva just announced last week, pretty much as we were talking about this, Canva AI 2.0. And I'm saying this as somebody who's kind of like um, been down on Canva's AI abilities previously. I felt like in my personal perspective, I feel like they were like rushed to market early on when a lot of the design tools, including them, were just not there, and like the outputs you would get were just bizarre, to say the least. But they're now releasing AI 2.0, which is a completely they're saying it's the biggest shift since they first hit the market, um, and it's a completely conversational. Um, it brings in brand intelligence so that it understands your brand guide and consistently creates on brand designs, um, and it's no longer kind of like one shot design where like what the output you get is what you get. These are fully editable files now, so that you can go in and make additional tweaks or request additional changes. And so I'm bringing this up because it was rolled out on the 16th of April to the first million at their Canva Create event. Um, I do not have access to it yet, but man, I'm looking forward to trying this out and sharing a demo of it here because it's kind of it's familial to what you're talking about here with ChatGPT Images 2.0, where we're finally, I feel like, hitting that stage. We've talked about this for 2 years now, where oh yeah, we're able to write incredible copy and we've been able to code now at like an incredible pace for a little while, but it always felt like design and image creation was lagging. We just weren't there yet, and I feel like we always had these kind of internal conversations where it's like, yeah, not yet. Now we're not ready to adopt that. It's not there yet. The output's not what we need, or the fidelity is not there. Um, I think the promise of this Canva AI 2.0 is that we are kind of hitting that point where businesses and creators can begin to take advantage of this and actually trust the results.
Yeah, agreed. Like Canva 2. AI 2.0, this stuff we're seeing in ChatGPT directly, the Claude design things, even Adobe's AI products are just getting to this point of like where you can reproduce and things are consistent, so you can actually trust it.
Yeah.
Uh, while we're talking about this, I've got one more fun one. I have no idea how this one's going to turn out, but I took a screenshot of me and Jesse from this, and I'm asking for a photorealistic, candid, disposable camera snapshot from a fictional early 2000s uh, high school track where the two of us are preparing for a high school championship race. Alternate history, anachronistic premise. Make it candid and nostalgic, imperfect flash photo, mild motion blur, film grain, slightly off center, composition, orange date stamp in the corner reading 04/22/00/2000. So let's see.
I'm flattered and appreciate that you believe I was still in high school, and actually, no, I was.
Yeah, me too. It was
I
the
was
end of
about to depart. I was about to peace out.
End of an era. I did run track. My main sport was
Yeah.
swimming. That was the thing
Mm.
that I could actually do. But some of my friends from the swim team, we wanted a spring sport, so we ran track. But I
Yeah.
just did not take it seriously, and neither did my friends. And we were really bad at it. So we did distance running. And the way
Yeah.
that it worked is you would just run through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And what we would do is we would run so slowly that everybody, including the coach, passed us, and then we would go to a pizza shop that was close enough that we could see every. Oh my goodness, this is perfect. I
Wait,
gotta interrupt my
blow
story
that
because
up. Blow that up.
this is perfect.
Can we? All right, so many things to unpack here. So many things.
Oh,
I got to hit the weight room first of all. Like, what am I doing? Why did you get the nice tan and I got this like blotchy complexion here?
I think it's our lighting from
Uh,
the.
that's flattering. That's nice of you to say. I
That
love
is
your
very
hair.
funny. I love my hair too. Like,
I mean, consider it. Consider that for a future episode.
I think it took the headphones. That's what I'm saying.
but
This is
that's insane. Like, look at this, like the detail, the old school timestamp, the imperfect lighting. I mean, do you
yeah.
remember taking pictures back then where the flash would just overlight the subject matter
Yeah.
2 feet in front, and it would make it look like nighttime in the background?
Well, I included Flash.
Yeah,
I said
yeah,
use Flash, so I think it did do it as a photo at dusk or at night because it must have assumed quote unquote
fair,
that like
fair.
Flash happens at night.
Fair, but I was also going to say, like, I appreciate the detail and the fact that like pictures would come out like that, even if it wasn't dusk. If you used the flash too early, it just darkened the background. I mean, this is like truly incredible. I also want to know who's photobombing over your shoulder there.
Yeah, that's just wild.
Absolutely incredible, and like that's silly and fun, but like just think about the kind of like the limitless opportunity of what you can do with this in like in your content creation, your business, whatever. Can we try one more thing while we're here? Because one of the
Yeah.
things that with all of these tools like drives me nuts is like, has it learned, or are we not there yet, to create assets at specific dimensions that you give it?
All right, give me a prompt.
Social media graphic for the shift at 1200 by 675 pixels. If you want more detail, fine, but I'm really interested to see if it hits that actual, even just the ratio.
Yeah. And I'll point it to the landing page for the shift. Yeah, this does seem like we're getting close to closing down or jumping into the mailbag at least.
Yeah.
And while we're wrapping things up, the prompt for you, if you're a business owner or marketer looking to try out this, is one, you can use it for advertising, like we're talking about. You can ask for a variety of ads in different aspect ratios and formats. Two, you can use it in your actual business, like Liz is in hers. She's using it to actually mock up, render a space to help her communicate her design vision to clients. So if you provide a service like that, you could likely use ChatGPT to help you with renderings. And I'm thinking of stuff like if you're a landscape architect, you could take a picture, mark it up, and then have ChatGPT render what the landscape architecture might look like.
Yeah.
So it looks like it got the aspect ratio right.
Which is what I wanted to see. Now, it turns out that we're having a 3-day conference in Pittsburgh in last October, actually.
Yeah.
Blame us for giving it a light on detail prompt. But that really is huge to me, because one of the blockers to this being like super productive, like everything you just talked about, for the most part, requires specific dimensions or ratios. Maybe not what Liz is delivering to a client, but if we're talking about using it for advertising, using it for your email design, using it for social media graphics, you want specific sizes, and a lot of these, including Gemini Nano Banana, seem to just kind of miss on that, almost like they just overlooked that explicit expression or direction because they just couldn't fulfill it. So that would, to me, that's a huge unlock too, besides the output and the results.
Yeah.
in the creative.
Well, let's take a pass at iterating on it too. I'm going to paste in the logo and the page content from the page we generated with Claude Design the other day and see
Mm,
what it comes back with. Because you're right, like the fact that this didn't describe exactly what we wanted it to describe was our fault in not
yeah,
giving it enough direction.
yeah,
So hopefully, with direction, we'll get something better that still matches that same aspect ratio.
yeah.
And
And
then
I
the
think,
last
yo, go
oh,
ahead.
the last thing I want to try, maybe as we jump into the mailbag, is I'm going to ask a follow up question, asking it to create variations of the image for other platforms.
Yeah. All right. What did he give us?
That's well, it still thinks we're in Pittsburgh.
Or were.
Yeah,
um, but like nonetheless, like
yeah,
it again, you've demonstrated like real iterative ability, where it didn't kind of lose everything that it knew when it changed the colors, used the real logo. That's huge. That's a massive step forward. Besides the detail and creativity and output.
cool.
So while you're doing that, let's jump into the mailbag. First question. My content is all over the place. I post when I have time, send emails when I remember, and have no real system. Can AI actually help me build consistency? Or does it still require me to do most of the heavy lifting? And I would almost argue the question here is like, how can I use AI to build consistency?
Yeah, so it can help you build consistency, and there are a couple different ways. So in Aweber, we've built a tool called the Newsletter Assistant. I'm sharing that to illustrate something. And
Yeah.
what it does is it writes content for you, and it will do that on demand. So you could just go to it and say, hey, write me this email. Every user actually has an email address for the assistant that you can email directly to say, like, create me this thing. So you don't have to log into your account. But it also does a thing where every week, or you can set a different cadence using a content planner, it will proactively send you a draft. The first
Mhm.
thing that it does is every week it'll send you an email saying, hey, is there anything in particular that you want to write about this week? And if you answer that email and say, yes, here it is, it'll create you a draft based on your feedback. But if you don't, it'll just create a draft based on what it knows about you and your audience. And the problem we're trying to solve with that is consistency, and we find that many of our users are actually using it to stay consistent,
Yeah.
uh, to stay consistently in contact with their audience.
I think another uh, example of that too. We just talked about Canva AI 2.0 coming, and while we haven't had a chance to demo that yet, we will coming up. One of the promises of it is that you can have it create assets on a schedule. So if you know, like, I need social media content that I want to post every Friday, you can set it up to produce that content with direction, like you've given it ahead of time in your brand guide, on a regular basis, so that you're kind of waking up to a finished product or a product that just needs review and maybe some revision, um, and not trying to motivate yourself to either remember or take action every single time.
Yeah, and you're also seeing the base tools like Claude itself releasing features that are geared towards automating recurring tasks. Claude Code released this feature. I actually, I'm not totally sure if it's released yet, called routines, which
Mm,
are recurring things that you can have run. And that's something that many people aren't experimenting with Claude Code yet. You might just be using the Claude chat or Claude Cowork, maybe, which is another great tool to have uh, a series of agents do things for you, like help you with your expenses or with research or whatever it is. But I imagine that many of those automation workflow type tools are going to make their way into the more consumer facing tools like Claude directly or ChatGPT, because these companies want you using this stuff regularly. So I imagine that the ability to schedule recurring tasks is something that's going to happen before too long.
yeah. Last mailbag question. I've been giving away a lot of free content, tips, guides, videos, and people seem to love it, but they're not converting into paying customers. could AI actually help me figure out what's working and what isn't? Or is that too advanced for a small business like mine? Now, they didn't share what type of business. Where my mind went immediately, um, is the uh, ChatGPT and a Weber connection integration that was just approved, the Claude and a Weber integration, where you could use AI connected to your marketing platform to analyze what's happening. Are there certain touch points or emails or campaigns where you are seeing better engagement or click through or purchase versus others? What are some of the, I think you may have talked about this the other day, almost not giving it too much direction, but like, what are some of the, what are some of the commonalities in terms of what's performing and what's not to help you analyze, any past performance and inform and guide, future emails, ad campaigns, anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think it's a good time to talk about like when you're using connectors in chat apps. Something to be cautious of
Mm.
is there's a thing many of you probably are aware of called context. We've talked about this in the past, and it's basically the short-term memory that the tool you're talking to has about whatever task it's trying to accomplish. Um, so it's important to think about when you might be asking it to analyze something like information about hundreds or thousands of subscribers or broadcasts. It's going to have a really hard time with that because eventually the data about the thing you're asking about is probably going to overload it. So there are two ways that I would suggest that you go about this. Like if you want to analyze a big group of subscribers or a big group of broadcasts or any big groups of things, the first is you narrow it down and just look at a sample. So like
Mm.
look at my last 10 subscribers with the tag customer as my customers and see what content they engaged with. That like limits it down. You're looking at a sample, so it probably isn't representative of your whole audience, but it might give you a hint if you're trying to understand how to improve things. The other thing that is more complex and not something that you can easily do directly in Claude or ChatGPT is to take the data set. So like get an export from your Aweber account with all of your performance from your different broadcasts and ask AI to classify it. So you could use something like Claude Code or some other tool and just say, hey, I need you to classify this data and
Mm.
tell me the type or the audience segment or something. Add some simple labels to this. And then what you'll end up with is a series of, let's say you're doing this with broadcasts, a subject line, the date it was sent, the segment it was sent to, and your engagement data. How many people it was sent to, how many people opened, how many people clicked, and then a list of classifying tags. And then what the models will be able to do with that is they won't have to look at the content of every message in your set to try and understand patterns. They can look at patterns in the classification tags. This is
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more of an advanced way to think about this stuff, or intermediate way to think about this stuff, but it's a good one because if you're trying to ask broad questions about big sets of data through ChatGPT or Claude, you're probably going to bump into these context limits.
Mm-hmm.
And best case scenario, it tells you that, but worst case scenario, it just gives you an answer based on its
That's
limited memory and never tells you that it was
Yeah.
excluding data.
Yeah, and I would even like, for that reason too, I would start at a simpler point, like in answering their question. Yes, AI can help you begin to identify what's going on, but I would ask it how. Like I would start with, uh, I am this business. Any
Yeah, great
contextual
idea.
information about your business, what you're doing, how you promote your business, like what channels are you specifically talking about where you're giving away a lot of free guides and videos that aren't performing. What do you need from me, or how can you help me analyze what's happening and identify how I can do better? And it'll guide you. It'll direct you for the most part.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's the mailbag. Chris, did you get any better results with Images 2.0 and our shift graphic? I see we're still in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's still, well, I didn't ask for it to change any of that. I just
Yeah.
asked for the different aspect ratios, and it did create that. It created it as separate, or I mean, as a single image. So maybe I'm going to ask a follow up and see if it will create them as separate images. But so far, I'm still getting just one image.
Yeah. Right on. That's the shift for today. I want to personally just thank everybody for being here. This is a lot of fun for us as we kind of figure out what this show is and how we can bring value to our viewing and listening audience. We hope that you'll take part. And if you found anything valuable in this, please share it with another business owner, creator, friend who you think would get value out of it. And we can begin to kind of build that community and hopefully just improve episode to episode so that we're meeting you where you are. Chris, what's your touch grass moment for today?
Yeah, my getting away from the computer is going to be walking my dogs, just being out in the world. We have these like cherry blossom trees around our neighborhood, and we're already past the main bloom. But
Yeah.
the period we're in now, they're just carpets of these beautiful pink petals all over the neighborhood, and my dogs love just kind of like rooting around in them. So it's going to get me outside for a minute.
Enjoy it. Get that fresh air. Please visit aweber.com/shift if you want to submit questions for the mailbag that we will answer live on a future episode. We will be back on Tuesday, the 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, everybody.
Drew is really good at making other people look really good.
Stunning.
And with the help of AWeber's marketing platform, he's built an entire audience on his ability to turn heads. So even though Drew's just a team of one, it never really feels that way.
That's a wrap, folks. Come on out.
Drew uses AWeber. It's how teams of one get more done.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Have sweet. You're the best, Tim.
With AWeber, it's like he has a whole staff helping him grow his audience and build professional-looking content.
And send. You got it. Great job, team.
From automated email campaigns
Oh, of course, sign up. You got it from here.
to insight-packed reports.
How are we looking on new subscribers? Is that the day we launch the new course? Nice.
AWeber gives Drew the freedom to go forth
Hey.
and be Drew. AWeber, time to love what you do.